Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I have something a little bit different to share with you. It's another little 3D project. Now I've looked at my stats and a lot of my subscribers and people who view my videos are from America, so I thought it would be nice to do something Thanksgiving related, even though we don't celebrate it here in Australia. Today I'm going to show you how I made these adorable place cards and this tiny little dome with a happy little squirrel scene in it. So to make these things I used the Let's Go Nuts stamp set, these tiny little domes that I found on eBay, the Scripty Thanks die, this other circle die that I just used for the bottom of the dome, and all these beautiful warm coloured cardstocks and distressings. It was also a fantastic excuse to get my hands on the Stitched Leaves die set. We're going to get started on the place cards first. So for these I took some scrap, really pale cream coloured cardstocks and I trimmed them down. I didn't really measure these very well, I just kind of went by how big I thought it should be, but they're about 5 inches long, and as you can see here I'm going to mark it out at about the 3-inch mark to give it a fold. I will have to double check my dimensions. I might put it on my blog of how wide these are. My guess is that they're probably about 4 or 4.5 inches wide. So I scored that line and put a nice crease in it so that it can stand up by itself. And here are all the leaves that I cut and the little things. These leaves are so beautiful and I love how they came out in these colours, but I did want to give them just a little bit more depth and dimension. They looked fantastic against the cream coloured cardstock, but there's just something about autumn leaves where they're all multicoloured and spotty and all very different. So I made sure I grabbed my distress inks and I rubbed all around the edges. As you can see, that's the difference between one that has been done and one that hasn't been done. It just changes up the colour a bit and just makes them look a little bit different. And I love the way the ink looks on this textured cardstock. So I did this with all the colours, the browns, the oranges, and the red. Now, as I mentioned before, Thanksgiving isn't celebrated here in Australia, so all that I know about it is what I can Google and pretty much the fairy tale versions that you see in movies and on TV. So I want to know about what you do for Thanksgiving, and I want to know what traditions that you have. I'm sure that just like Christmas and just like other big celebrations, that every family has something that they do a little bit different. I would love for you to share that with me, especially about the food, because if there's a celebration and food involved, I am so there, and I want to know what your favourite foods are for Thanksgiving. Are you into the really traditional stuff, or does your family have like old recipes that only come out for Thanksgiving? Make sure you pop a comment down below so we can chat. So here I am using my all-time favourite watercolor pigments. These come out for almost every card. They're so beautiful. And I'm just sprinkling over the yellow gold and the red gold over the leaves. These tones are very warm and they just match those warm tones of the cardstock really well, and it gave it that beautiful shimmery effect. While I have my inks and my watercolors out, I'm also going to do the very bottom of the little squirrel scene. I wanted this to be very simple. I'm just using some dark orange around a piece of orange cardstock and adding some shimmer to it, just so that if you're looking down from on top, it hasn't been left out and it isn't plain. Also, while I've got these watercolors out, they're getting a serious workout for this card. I'm using the really light gold and sprinkling a little bit of that over the cardstock. This is a super subtle effect, but I didn't want it to be too plain up against those really decorated leaves. You can only really see it on certain angles, but I really do love that it's there. Now, because these are Thanksgiving place cards, I thought the word thanks was perfect for this. It's the perfect size as well for these place cards. But if you were to make these, you could obviously personalize these with people's names or with different sentiments. I didn't really know what would be appropriate for these, but I thought, just a plain thanks would work to show you. I just used some plain black cardstock for these, and I'm layering it just to give it the tiniest bit of dimension. It was going to look a little bit too flat just having one layer on my cardstock. The reason I did 2 of these was because I could not decide if I wanted the leaves to be hanging down from the top or coming up from the bottom. Both of them kind of looked good in my head, but I really just wanted to make both of them and see which one I liked best. And I'd love to know which one you like best, because honestly, now that I've made them, I still can't decide. I still think they're both really pretty. But if you've got a lot of people coming over, you can always do a mix of them just to mix up your table decorations. But let me know in the comments what you think. So here I am just arranging the leaves in just what feels good. I want them to be layered and I don't want there to be gaps between them. For all of these elements, I'm using some PVA glue. I'm not pressing all of them down too hard because I do want to be able to lift up some bits of the leaves and put some foam squares behind them just to give it a bit more dimension. Once I had stuck all the leaves on, I then had to decide if I wanted to trim them down. They looked really good hanging over the edge, but in my head I envisioned them being really neat around the edges, so I decided to give it a go, and as soon as I made the first cut, I knew that that is what I needed to do. It just really tidied it up. It looked so neat, and it just was pretty much exactly as I had pictured it. This beautiful, warm autumn leaf border. I am so happy with how that one turned out. I did the same for both place cards. I'm glad I gave both of them a go, but this is why I still can't choose a favourite. What do you think? Which one looks best? Or do you like both of them like me? Now moving on to this adorable little squirrel scene, I thought this would be cute to go along with the place card. Imagine a table full of these place cards and full of these tiny little domes of happy squirrels. I think it would just look really cute. These are the colours that I'm using, mostly my skin tone set with a red and a yellow. I'm just going to very quickly colour these in, and as you'll see, because this is a 3D project and people will be looking at it from all sides, I just quickly go over the back of these pieces with the same colours, just so that it doesn't look odd and like the ink has just blended through the cardstock and it's been left that way. It just tidies it up a little bit more. I wanted this little squirrel to be raised up within the little dome. I didn't want him to be too far down behind the leaves where you couldn't see him. So I raided my craft stash and I found these little wooden circles that I had ordered, I think maybe a year or two ago, where I really wanted to do those wood circle decorations that you stamp on. And they arrived and they were like 1 and 2 centimeters big instead of much. There was one of those times where I didn't read the description very well and they turned up much smaller than I had anticipated. So I'm trying to use them in my Christmas crafts. And for this, they were perfect. So I stacked a few of them on top of each other and then had one standing up at the back. This way you couldn't see all the messy colouring that had bled through the cardstock on the squirrel. And it also gave me a space to hide all my acetate that is holding the leaves and propping my squirrel up as well. The edges of my dome were looking a little bit plain, so I used this scrap piece of craft cardstock and cut enough so that it could wrap around the base. I then used my leftover leaves from my place cards and I just chopped them in half. I then arranged them onto this piece of cardstock so that I could use it as a bit of a decorative border for around the dome. Once I had adhered my little leaf border around the edges of my dome, it was then time to stick my little squirrel down. I just used some PVA glue for this. And once he was dry, this little set was complete. So here are some photos of the finished products. I really hope you love them. If you did, then please give this video a thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe. After this video, I'm heading back to my Christmas crafts. I hope you'll join me for them too. Thank you so much for watching. Bye for now.